Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Silver the Hedgehog here, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos here. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Sonic X Shadow Generations, while we're still playing through Shadow Generations for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, PC Steam, Nintendo Switch, plus Nintendo Switch 2, all thanks to backwards compatibility. So, last time, we essentially did manage to continue exploring through White Space 3D by able to try to find some more collection boxes. In addition to that, we also did manage to actually kind of think about it, that we somehow managed to fully complete the last few, White Space challenges, as soon as you're able to actually try to collect the, not only some more rings, but in addition to the forms of trying to collect those specific, clocks for, certain sections, for the sake of the forms of, 3D White Space. So, yeah, apart from those aside things, though, is about the fact that we are straight to the point, almost completely done, in terms of every single aspect of Shadow Generations for sure. And relatively speaking, I was about the fact that if you couldn't tell, that we off by 2 more collection boxes needs to be open, as well as from that, we also off by, I would say, 2 more machine parts, which then again, it can be pretty well hidden if you pretty much need to pay attention to the forms of the surroundings. And thankfully though, as you can tell, that we did somehow manage to find one of those collection boxes right here. And speaking of which, is that today for this video, is that we can able to actually open up the final 2 collection boxes, as well as from that, we can also try to find the final 2 machine parts. And in addition to that, as promised you guys, I will try to actually tackle through boss battles on hard mode, ranging from the Bio Lizard, as well as Metal Overlord, and Mephiles the Dark. So, either way, let's just go ahead and quickly try to do some bit of checking for the sake of time. Likely also we got to use fast travels here and there, so just in case about the fact that there are certain chests I sort of able to actually ignore during the forms of our first playthrough. And so much to the point for the fact that, yes, if you couldn't tell, we finally managed to find every single collection boxes right here. And then once you're done with that, well, as you can see on screen, we got ourselves our nice, glorious trophy and achievement if you ever experienced the Xbox version. So, usually for both Xbox One or Series X/S to be more specific. So, anyways though, so yeah, a few things I want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date, of course, is the 13th of February today, in some cases in 2025 today, and as to be expected, about the fact that ever since and around yesterday, that the State of Play Direct for PlayStation has already brought up, and the reception to that is a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, there are some highlights here and there for sure. Like, for instance, though, is about the fact that before we get into more details about this, though, first of all, there was actually yet another collaboration for the Super Mario Bros. Franchise is already going to be happening, all thanks to the forms of a food product, which, as a result, it turns out that Pringles, the actual crisps in UK, is actually going to be having a partnership with Super Mario. I'm guessing it's probably because it's probably due to that, you know, the 40th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise is going to be on its way. So, either way. Although, before we get into more details about this, though, is that, as you can tell, we're about to begin the Bio Lizard boss fight again, except now on hard mode. And what's the major difference with the, well, between both the normal mode or hard mode? Well, if you couldn't tell already, that we have no rings to start things off, and as well as from that, there aren't any rings to be collected. So, relatively speaking, we have to do this boss fight deathless. So, because of that, though, in addition to that, the Bio Lizard's attacks, it comes up as way too fast. So, relatively speaking, it's about the fact that it's definitely going to be a little bit more challenging when it comes to likely trying to, compete against with the familiar bosses on hard mode. Well, apart from one exception, which is of course Devil Doom, because, well, straight to the point though is about the fact that unlike the Time Meter, that the Time Meter does have both normal and hard mode. Well, in the forms of a Bio Lizard though, well, it does have 2 different difficulties, which we have normal and hard, and same applies with Metal Overlord and Mephiles the Dark. So, either way, And suffice to say, out of all the actual boss battles on hard mode in Shadow Generations, usually between both the Bio-Lizard and Mephiles the Dark are the only bosses that does not have any rings. Although, if we get onto the forms of Metal Overlord on the other hand, well, it does manage to have rings, probably because no matter what though, it's about the fact that you will expect it to get hit a lot. So, or in some cases you will die a lot, so either way. Now for the most part it's about the fact that the actual boss battle itself for Bio-Lizard remains the same, apart from the fact that the actual defense value is actually much more higher than the forms of how it does it back on normal mode. So because of that though, it is generally a lot more trickier than the forms of how it does it since on the first time around. So, because unlike the forms of how it does it on Sonic Generations on hard mode for several boss fights, it does have some different gimmicks to it, or in some cases it does have some additional stuff. Like for example, when you face up against with Shadow, that you have to collect 3 energy orbs in order to able to try to get yourself to an energy boost power up, and as well as that, I get the feeling with Perfect Chaos on hard mode, it does manage to take you to the alternate route, as opposed to follows the exact same route every time. And also, if you couldn't tell already, that the background music you're going to be hearing in the background, which appears to be the original version of Supporting Me from the likes of the forms of Sonic Adventure 2. So either way, although we can still able to actually use Chaos Control if we decided to, but we might try to use it until whenever we get onto the forms of some very tricky situations, especially concerning for the fact that as soon as we make our way to the end of the fight, well, don't expect about the fact that I don't think it's possible we can able to actually achieve the S rank in during forms of on hard mode difficulty on some bosses, because as far as I'm aware, I did manage to able to practice this on my spare own time, on not only on the Switch version, but alongside with the forms of the Xbox One versions as well. And believe me, it is not as easy as it looks, especially concerning for the fact that, well, usually if you don't have enough practice with the forms of hard mode, well, you might as able to expect your time will be, you know, pretty much wasted if you keep on dying a lot. So, although the good news about this though is about the fact that the checkpoint is actually quite more generous if you go on to the next phase of the fight. So luckily though, you don't have to restart all over again in terms of boss battles itself, unlike in Sonic Generations that if you do manage to get screwed up, then you have to start all over again in Journey Forms of Phase 1 all the way up to, well, you get the idea for this point. So anywho though, also, as about the fact that, well, suffice to say, happy 52nd birthday to the one and only greatest actor of all time. That's what appears to be Tara Strong, which, as a result, if you're familiar with that particular voice actor, well, she did the voice of not only Twilight Sparkle from, of course, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, but alongside with that, she also did Bubbles from the original Powerpuff Girls, and so much more I can probably think about on top of my head, including Melody from the likes of The Little Mermaid 2, The Return to the Sea, which I know for a fact I've never actually seen that film actually for myself, but that's mainly because I've heard some mixed feelings about the film. Like, on the other hand, it is alright, but it's just about the fact that I just feel like that some Disney sequels are nowhere near as grand or epic compared to the films of how it does it, how amazing the originals were. But that's just me. And also another thing I would like to point out as well, apparently though, about that time until tomorrow, that Captain America Brave New World is going to be releasing until tomorrow on a big screen, but the reviews have been turned up, specifically in Rotten Tomatoes website, and it's not looking great, especially concerning for the fact that currently, as of right now, that particular film has received 54%, so as a result, it is definitely one of the lowest score of the franchise in terms of Captain America movies, so yeah, it's not that looking good, especially concerning for the fact that it does have some potentials here and there, but it's just that at the end of the day, that, you know, like I said before, Disney wants money. That's what they're trying to expect it to be going after for it. So, anyways though, let's get into the forms of the most important discussion about the forms of today. Now, of course, some announcements they did bring for the likes of the latest State of Play Direct, for the likes of PlayStation and stuff, including you know, multi-platform releases here and there, ranging from Xbox and Nintendo for the sake of Nintendo Switch, and potentially the upcoming Nintendo Switch 2 or something like that. Well, mind you, about the fact that we still have to wait for a little longer until we hear more about the forms of Nintendo Switch 2. So, anywho, in terms of the forms of the game reveals they did somehow brings us into, the first game they did showcase is, of course, Monster Hunter Wilds, because after all, we've only got about approximately 15 days left until that game is going to be releasing by the end of the month, in specifically February 28th, so yeah, relatively speaking now. And it's also worth noting for too, about the fact that they're gonna be brings us into the first free title update for spring 2025 for some time. It could be either be on March or April or May, depending on the forms of if the actual specific month will be addressed. So yeah, nothing new around here, apart from the fact that, well, obviously though, they got the new trailer for you know what I mean, with Monster Hunter Wilds, especially concerning for the fact that it's going to be on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X after all, just because of the graphics and all that stuff. Although I'm not exactly sure if it's entirely possible that Nintendo Switch 2 could probably be able to get that release or something. Well, time will tell. So anyway, the next game they did show us appears to be by the forms of the next Shinobi game, which, yes, Shinobi, the Sega IP during that time, back in the 90s. Well, Shinobi, he's finally returned after the events of, I would say, that the last time we actually heard about something related to Shinobi was back on the 3DS era, where they somehow managed able to bring Shinobi onto the Nintendo 3DS back in 2011, which, gee, time flies. Especially it's been about, maybe wrong, but regardless of such note, that yes, the next entry of the Shinobi series is going to be in the works, and actually, as it turns out, is about the fact that it's going to be releasing during at some point in August 29th in 2025, and as a result, the game is going to be called Shinobi Art of Vengeance. So, I believe it's about to due out on multiple platforms, as to be expected, when it comes to not only for PlayStation 4, but alongside with PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, PC Steam, Nintendo Switch, including Nintendo Switch 2 due to backwards compatibility. I mean, you get the idea for what you expect at this point. But then, out of nowhere, well, according to the forms of the actual rumor that has been going on ever since around yesterday, just before the State of Play just recently happened, well, we got ourselves a brand new trailer, as well as that, some gameplay mechanics have been revealed for the likes of the upcoming Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. So, yeah, it's been about 2 months ago since we've last heard about anything in terms of Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, and suffice to say, I'm immediately hyped about the forms of Sonic Racing Cross Worlds for multitude of factors. For one, no team gameplay mechanics, which I'm very grateful about, especially, I will admit though right away, I'm still not a big fan of Team Sonic Racing in general, just because of the team aspects, because as a result, it can be a little bit luck-based to try to win several of those Grand Prix races and all that stuff. As well as that though, I get the feeling about the fact that the actual worlds themselves are going to be much more interesting in comparison to the forms of how it does it from the likes of the previous installments, which is of course Team Sonic Racing, despite the fact that we might still see returning tracks from the past Sonic Racing games for sure. I mean, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that that'll be a discussion for later time, so either way. So as you can tell, we're now on to Metal Overlord on hard mode, and there's nothing different about it, apart from the fact that obviously the defense value is actually much higher for the sake of Metal Overlord, and oh yeah, this is a section we haven't exactly got into on normal mode, and I will have to admit though right away, it's definitely a little bit tricky with this section, just because, well, you need to pay attention to the forms of that particular flash of red, so that actually indicates that you have to try to able to dodge his attacks, so from its tail anyway, so generally speaking, it was all about timing, so anyways, so although currently as for right now, for the sake of Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, it hasn't been confirmed the actual release date yet, but it did say about the fact that it's on wishlist now, and as far as I'm aware, yes, much like the forms of how it does it on any other Sonic games up to this point, ever since in, well, Sonic Colors Ultimate, all the way up to, well, Sonic X Shadow Generations as for right now, that much like those games is that we might able to actually get digital deluxe edition as well. So we'll explain more about that if we able to actually get on with the forms of some more announcements they did somehow brings us into for the most recent State of Play Direct. So anyway, and as far as I'm aware, that, yeah, I'm actually excited for the sake of the forms of Sonic Racing Cross Worlds after all, because, well, not only is it going to be incredibly big, but in addition to that, we might able to actually come across into some familiar set pieces from other Sonic games, including Sonic and the Secret Rings. Why? Well, again, we'll save that topic for a later time. So anyway, the next game they did show us, and that's what appears to be Digimon Story Time Stranger. And as far as I'm aware, it's going to be coming out at some point in this year, which I guess that's another one of those games has been leaked just before, you know, State of Play has already been happened. So, yeah, generally speaking, nothing else to it to say about it. And the next game after that, though, which appears to be Lost Soul Aside, I believe that game is about to due out at some point on May 30th in 2025, so that's coming on PlayStation 5 and PC, so yeah, nothing right to harm about, I have to be quite frank here. In addition to that, there's also some more information about the forms of Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, and yeah, obviously that game is not going to be that long to its release, so I believe about the fact that we've only got about 8 more days left until that game is going to be releasing on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, including Xbox systems if I can recall. But then, out of nowhere, that Dave the Diver is also getting itself this bonus content too, and that's what appears to be Akaban's holiday content pack, which appears to be more actually like a collaboration with one of those Yakuza games or something like that. And it's about to due out at some point on April for some time. So generally speaking, that's as far as I can try to explain about that. And the next game after that, which appears to be Splitgate 2, and that game is going to be receiving the PlayStation 5 Alpha, is about to begin at some point by the end of February, which as a result is going to be on the 27th of February for sure. And next game after that, though, is that we might able to actually see some more gameplay footage of WWE 2K25. And as far as I'm aware, that there is this PlayStation 5 exclusive thing, at least as far as I did manage to double check on the actual description for it, that basically, though, there's a mode called The Island, where basically, though, it's about the fact that I get the feeling that that mode was only going to be on PlayStation 5 just because it can handle bigger visual identity or something like that, because from what I've checked, that the PlayStation 4 version of that particular feature will not be available, so generally speaking though, I'm guessing it's probably because PlayStation 5 is much more powerful than the forms of how it does it for PlayStation 4, so yeah, I guess that makes it totally obvious. So, and in terms of the release date for WWE 2K25, as far as I'm aware, it's going to be releasing until 14th of March in 2025. So, yeah, nothing else to say about it. And as well as that, there's also the forms of a long-awaited sequel of Borderlands, and that's what appears to be Borderlands 4. And that game is obviously going to be coming out on PlayStation 5, including Xbox Series X, because again, with the graphics and all that. So as a result though, I get the feeling about the fact that it's going to be due out at some point, likely also for either this year or next year in particular, for 2026. I mean, it's hard for me to tell, because obviously though it hasn't been confirmed the actual release date so far. So anyway, and the next game after that though, which appears to be Split Fiction, and as a result that game is going to be releasing until the 6th of March in 2025. So, and after that though, there's also another game called Directive 8020, and as far as I'm aware, that game has usually been a part of the forms of a Dark Pictures game, and the actual release date has already been confirmed for that game, and that's going to be releasing in June at some point on the 2nd of October. So as a result, whilst meanwhile for pre-orders of that game is going to be from June. So yeah, I guess there's nothing else to it though. And after that though, there's yet another Five Nights at Freddy's game, except this time it does have a different subtitle, and as a result the game is going to be now called Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Manic, I think is what it says anyway. So either way, now I'm pretty sure that game is going to be releasing at some point on the 13th of June in 2025. So yeah. And after that, they showed us more gameplay footage of the films of the Midnight Walk, and now this time, they now actually confirms the actual release date, and it's going to be releasing at some point on the 8th of May, and that's still going to be releasing on PlayStation 5, including PlayStation VR 2, for the sake of the forms of support compatibility or something like that. So, anywho, the next game after that though, which appears to be Darwin's Paradox, which appears to be you able to take control of the forms of this very unexpected octopus, conveniently named Dwayne. So as a result though, the actual gameplay mechanics of that game, it kind of reminds me of the forms of that one of those scenes of Finding Dory, when there is this particular octopus looking character that does manage to help Dory trying to able to actually get out of the aquarium center or something like that, which I know for a fact it's been a very long while since I actually have last seen the film, and especially concerning for the fact at this point in time, I'm just mainly focusing on just, you know, really looking forward to see other films coming up soon. Specifically though, like I said before, with Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, which I keep on thinking about part 2 of Dead Reckoning, which as a result though, that title's no longer the case, because it is a bit overly redundant to be able to actually just stick around with part 1 of Dead Reckoning, enjoying the events of the most recent film at the time, which I know it's hard for me to say, but I do know for certain for that particular aspect about the fact that, well, they're trying to go for a different title, despite the fact that it's going to be a direct sequel to, you know, Dead Reckoning ever since, you know, 2 years ago. So, but anyway though, as far as the release date for Dwayne's Paradox game for PlayStation 5, it's about to be coming out at some point in this year in particular for 2025, so, and it does not mention about the PlayStation 4 release, so, and the next game after that though is that that particular game has already came out just recently. That's what appears to be Warriors Abyss. So as a result, that game is going to be releasing on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. And meanwhile, on PlayStation 4 side of things, that there's going to be a remastered game that's going to be releasing until specifically on the 23rd of May in 2025, and that's what appears to be Omasha 2 Samurai's Destiny. And then on the other hand, there's also going to be yet another installment of Omayashi, I think it's what it says anyway. That the game is going to be called Omiyamasha Way of the Sword, is also going to be on its way too. And in fact, no matter what though, it's going to be on PlayStation 5 just because, you know, graphics and all that. And I believe that game is going to be releasing until 2026. So yeah, it's going to be a long wait ahead. So, and the next game after that though is that we're able to actually see a brand new trailer for the upcoming remake of the films of Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater, or in some cases Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. And out of nowhere, not only do we get ourselves a release date, but also we get ourselves a familiar cameo appearance from the likes of the Ape Escape series, which as a result, yeah, that really caught me off guard whenever I saw that familiar monkey from the likes of Ape Escape series. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool to me though, but I'm not exactly sure why he was doing there. But anyway, and as far as the release date is concerned, that particular game is going to be releasing until the 28th of August in 2025. So as a result though, yeah, we only got about approximately 6 months left until Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater is finally going to be making it on its way for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. So yeah, pretty fantastic all things considered. So anyway, the next game after that though, which appears to be Hell Is Us, I believe that game is going to be confirmed its release date right now, and that's what appears to be for the fact that it's now going to be coming until the 4th of September in 2025. So yeah, I guess that's what I can really say about this, I guess. And the next game after that, which appears to be Lies of P Overdue, so I believe that game is going to be releasing until sometime in summer 2025, so we're not exactly sure when exactly, but we shall wait and see. And the next game after that though, which appears to be Dreams of Another, and I believe that game is going to be coming and during at some point in this year in 2025, so and has recently been added to wish lists for the sake of time. And the next game after that, which appears to be Days Gone Remastered, and I believe that particular remastered version of that game will be able to actually get some new content, which it does manage to contain some plenty of modes, including photo mode as well, with enhanced, and alongside with the forms of accessibility features, and that's about it basically. So yeah, I've got no commented on that, and it's still gonna be coming out at some point on April 25th of 2025, so yeah, I guess that's totally obvious. I believe the new game modes is also going to be coming to PC as well as Broken Road DLC, so yeah, I guess that's something. And alongside with that, there's also going to be, you know, more information about the forms of Stellar Blade and Goddess of Victory, Nuke DLC, and I believe that's going to be coming out at some point in June this year, so for both PlayStation 5 and PC. And as well as on that, there's also Tides of Annihilation, and I believe that it hasn't been confirmed the actual release date yet, but much like the forms of that other game I mentioned earlier, it does manage to say wishlist now, and that's going to be on PlayStation 5 for sure. And the next game after that, which appears to be by the forms of, well, let's just say, Metal Eden, that it also says wishlist now, but it does manage to confirm the release date for the game, and as a result it did say May 6th, 2025. So yeah, we haven't got that long of that either. So, and the next game after that though, which appears to be Mind's Eye, and as a result that game is about to due out at some point in summer in 2025, so we're expecting about the fact that some of those games, for the sake of the schedule release for summer, will be expected to be see some more info on some of these games, and during the forms have been a Summer Game Fest at some form or another, during the course of this year in particular. So, and the final game, they did some mentions about the forms of the State of Play Direct, and that's what appears to be Sorrows. And that game is going to be releasing until 2026, so yeah, it's going to be an awfully long time to be able to wait for that game, but ultimately speaking, I was about the fact that at the end of the day, I feel like that the State of Play Direct for the sake of yesterday though, it was not great, but I will say the highlights of that Direct for me though, is definitely Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, because I'm just seriously looking forward to see how much tracks they'll try to bring us into. In addition to that, for I've heard, they'll try to bring 23 playable characters on a base game of Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, which I will say, that is a massive step up from the likes of the forms of how lackluster the character roster is in Team Sonic Racing, because they only had 15 racers because of the forms of the team gameplay aspect. So as a result though, I very appreciate about the fact that they're trying to add more playable characters into the actual roster. And speaking of characters though, they decided able to bring back almost every single one of the Sonic's friends, including Sonic himself, which is very obvious. So yeah, certain characters include Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, Amy, Dr. Eggman, Jet the Hawk, Wave the Swallow, and Storm the Albatross are also finally coming back after the events of Sonic Free Riders, especially for Storm the Albatross, because not counting the forms of Sonic Forces Speed Battle mobile game, by the way, but as a result though, yeah, it's been an awfully long time since we've seen the Babylon Rogues in during the forms of in a Sonic game since Sonic Free Riders for the infamous Xbox 360 Connect. So, at the very least, on the plus side of this though, is about the fact that thank God we don't have to worry about trying to get the Kinect accessory anymore, because it's now multiple regions, or to be more accurate though, multi-platform releases now, so there's no specific exclusives for that part, so I digress. Also we've got Shadow, ever since in the cinematic trailer, since in the Game of the Year awards in 2024 last year, and also we've got Rouge, E123 Omega, Vector the Crocodile, in addition to Charmy B and Espio the Chameleon, so we've got the majority of the characters from the Team Chaotix group, from the likes of Sonic Heroes, so that's a huge plus in our book. And we also got Blaze the Cat, Silver the Hedgehog, which is myself, and also, finally, we've now finally got ourselves Cream the Rabbit has now finally joined the roster, which, despite the fact that she was entirely absent from the likes of Team Sonic Racing. So I'm very happy about the fact that Cream the Rabbit was now becoming a playable character in a Sonic Racing game now. So I bet about the fact that a lot of Sonic fans out there, including myself, will be totally going to be happy about that. Alongside with that, there's also going to be Metal Sonic, and as well as that, Big the Cat is still a thing. And in addition to that, the egg ponds will become playable, hopefully this time around, because originally though, in Team Sonic Racing, they're originally trying to able to become playable in journey forms within other modes in Team Sonic Racing, but ultimately though, that's not the case, because aside from the fact that I was a little bit disappointed with Team Sonic Racing now, because, well, don't get me wrong, I still find the game to be alright, but it's just that it's definitely my least favorite in terms of modern Sonic Racing games, unlike Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing and its predecessor, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transforms, that I feel like those games are far superior. But I can definitely tell you right from the get-go that, like I said before, I'm going to be incredibly hyped about the forms of Sonic Racing Cross Worlds now, alongside with the brand new Mario Kart game. But the question is though, enjoying the forms of in 2025 as a year itself, I wonder if it's possible about the fact that it might actually just become a tradition where Mario and Sonic compete against each other again, but this time around though with a kart racing genre, which as a result, it's hard for me to tell, because, you know, we still only got about approximately 2 months left, or should I say lesser than 2 months now, until we're able to actually hear more about Nintendo Switch 2. So either way, so as you can tell, we somehow finally managed to beat in the hard mode variants of 3 bosses, and so far we actually did those bosses okay. I mean, at the end of the day though, we've got an A rank on BioLizard, and sadly we've got ourselves the C rank on Metal Overlord, mainly because it just seems able to feels like it kind of drags on a little bit. As well as that though, the attacks can be unpredictable at times. And meanwhile, for Mephiles the Dark, surprisingly enough, despite I accidentally died a couple of times on the first attempt, but on the second attempt, on the other hand though, we did that pretty alright. So it's just only the matter of the fact that you have to use Chaos Control more often during some bosses, especially concerning for the fact that if you don't accidentally died automatically, because like I said this before, both the BioLizard and Mephiles the Dark are the only bosses on hard mode that does not give you any rings, whilst unlike Metal Overlord, that obviously though, it does give you some rings. So, not all of the rings mind you, but just a matter of the fact that it can be like a pretty challenging task, at least as far as I do notice from the get-go. So, anyways though, and the final 2 races we do have for the base game for Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, and somehow, remember what I told you before about the fact that we're not going to see the majority of the Deadly Six members for the time being? Well, it turns out I was completely wrong, because actually as it turns out, not only does it bring back the leader of the Deadly Six, which is Zavok, but also Zaz, he's now joining in the racing tracks as well. So generally speaking, was this like a similar situation as the forms of the most recent Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games series, ranging from Rio 2016 Olympic Games and Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 version? I mean, it feels like a deja vu with all this particular, you know, some of these characters they originally came from for the sake of the forms of, well, as I say, Sonic Lost World, and then they decided able to, like, brought them back for some spin-offs anyway, but I don't mind about it too much. But then, we actually got ourselves the newest one out of the lineup though, in terms of the actual racing drivers, and that's of course, Sage herself, from Sonic Frontiers. So, yeah, pretty cool addition to the roster, especially we can able to now finally play as her outside of the forms of Sonic Frontiers. So yeah, that's actually pretty awesome. So, I mean, we're not exactly sure what other characters they'll try to bring us into during the post-base game, as far as I'm aware. Like, I'm not exactly sure if Infinite will join in, or Chaos Zero, or one of the comics from the likes of the forms of the Sonic franchise, like Tangle, or Whisper, or Surge, or just any other characters I can probably think about, based off on the sake of the forms of the you know, the comics from Sonic franchise, and in addition to that, I'm not exactly sure if Styx the Badger will make its return, just because, obviously, the Sonic Boom franchise has been short-lived after 3 years. Like, it first began since 2014, and then it concludes since 2017. So because of that, though, we have no idea what's going on with the actual character roster as far as the final roster as far as I'm usually concerned with. But either way, but at least on the upside is that we've got every single characters based off from, you know, Sonic Heroes for its playable departments, ranging from, you know, Team Sonic, Team Dark, Team Rose, and Team Chaotix. So, yeah, definitely a massive step up from Team Sonic Racing's roster, at least to me. So, anyways, so yeah, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. Are you guys super excited, able to actually see some more gameplay action for the likes of Sonic Racing Cross Worlds? Because, let me tell you, I'm now incredibly hyped about that game now, especially concerning for the fact that, well, again, it is, you know, kind of hard for me to go back into Team Sonic Racing now, just because, well, let's just hope about the fact that the track selection will be a lot more bigger, as well as that, though, a lot of energetic stuff here and there as well. So we'll just see what happens until hopefully the game will receives the release date, and during at some point later on in the year for 2025. So as a result, and also let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day as well. What was your thoughts about the forms of the most recent State of Play Direct for PlayStation? And like I stated before, it's not great. I mean, I just wish there was like some more familiar surprises here and there, like, oh, I don't know, reviving Mega Man again, because, well, like I stated before, that it's been, you know, 6 years, or technically 7 years ago, since Mega Man 11 did first came out in 2018, so, yeah, still no sign of the forms of Mega Man 12 or Mega Man X9 or anything else like that, because, well, and it's also worth noting for too, still no sign of the forms of Mega Man Legends Legacy Collection, which contains Legends 1 and Misadventures of Trombone and Legends 2, because, well, generally speaking, no, I'm not exactly sure if it's still coming yet, or it could be likely for the sake of the forms of cancellation or something like that. So, again, it's a bit difficult to say, because, well, that's as far as I can talk about. I mean, generally speaking, I was about the fact that, of course, you know exactly what I'm about to say, that I'm trying to go after all 3 of these versions. So, anyway, oh, there's one machine part right there. Oh, jeez, that took a bit of a while to find it. Okay, sorry for a little bit of a quick editing right there, because there is this last machine part right there, which I did not see that coming. And believe me while I'm saying this, it took me, honest to God, it honestly took me for about 15 minutes to able to try to find this godforsaken machine part. I mean, it is definitely kind of feels a bit, well, the only trickiest part about the forms of some machine parts is that they sometimes blend into one of those obstacles or anything else like that. But aside from all that stuff though, we finally found them all. Not only for the sake of the forms of the collection box is familiar, but also we finally got ourselves every single machine parts. And now let's go ahead and deliver all 80 of those machine parts to Orbot and Qbot to able to craft one of the rockets. So, however though, here's the thing though, you do need to deliver for about 20 of those machine parts at a time. So there are a couple of times though about the fact that if you deliver the first 20 machine parts, you get one of those concept arts, and if you manage to deliver 20 more, you get another concept art, and then as soon as you're able to deliver the last 20 machine parts, usually it goes all the way up to 80, then I'm sure enough though, there might be something that's very worth rewarding. Well, let's just hope about the fact that it will be like, I don't know, a brand new music or something, because generally speaking, I was about the fact that we've gone through so much of those things, as far as you can definitely tell from the get-go. So, and also something's worth noting for the sake of time as well is about the fact that until tomorrow, about the fact that we're going to be approaching on to the end of the first half of February of 2025 before we move on to the second half of February before we move on to March. So, and it's also worth noting for the sake of time too is about the fact that I can't even believe by saying this, it's been like, oh I don't know, 8 years ago since let's just say Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World for the 3DS did somehow came out for anywhere around the world. I mean, generally speaking, I haven't touched upon that game for a while, just because I've been busy playing a lot of my Nintendo Switch before we move on to Nintendo Switch 2. but I digress. So this is the reward you do get if you manage able to deliver all 80 of those machine parts, and that is the new music from Sonic Forces. So, yeah, not worth to write home about. I mean, honestly, guys, it's just about the fact that it seems kind of feels a bit... It exists, so... And as well as that, though, I've somehow got not one, but 3 trophies into one specific part, and, well, it's hard for me to say. But, regardless of such, though, that's over and done with, so with that being said, we should probably endings of this point right here. So join me next time for more Let's Play of Sonic X Shadow Generations. For still experiencing Shadow Generations is that, well, we'll also show off the last few bits, including the collection room, as well as this extra stage from that particular travel ring right there. So this will be interesting. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.